My in-laws beat me until my bones broke. My husband told me it was my punishment for being disobedient. 3 days later, my in-laws came to the hospital to gloat, only to find my room empty. The next second, a doctor said something that made them rush home, open the door, and freeze in shock at the scene inside. When my mother-in-law's rolling pin came down on my left shin for the 3rd time, I heard the distinct, sharp crack of breaking bone. An excruciating pain, like a jolt of electricity, shot through my entire body. I collapsed onto the cold tile floor, my vision blurred with tears. The harsh kitchen light illuminated the furious, contorted face of my mother-in-law, Brenda Miller, and the cold, indifferent figure of my father-in-law, David, standing beside her with his arms crossed. "This is for talking back. This is for daring to say my cooking is too salty," Brenda panted, the rolling pin still held aloft. "Once you enter the Miller family, you follow the Miller rules. Do you think you're still some college girl? A barren hen who can't even lay an egg?" I curled into a ball, my left leg bent at a grotesque angle. Every breath brought a fresh wave of agony. I tried to crawl toward the door, my fingers leaving weak, desperate streaks on the linoleum. "Kevin, Kevin," I whispered my husband's name, my last hope. Footsteps approached from the living room. Kevin Miller, my husband. The man who, 3 years ago, under a sycamore tree on his college campus, had sworn to protect me for the rest of my life, slowly walked to the kitchen doorway. He looked down at me, his eyes holding not concern, but only impatience. "What now? What is it this time?" He frowned, his gaze falling upon my obviously deformed leg, but his expression didn't change. "Kevin, my leg is broken," I gritted out, cold sweat soaking my bangs. "Take me to the hospital, I'm begging you." Kevin crouched down, but not to examine my injury. He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look up at him. "Eleanor, how many times have I told you? You have to listen." His voice was terrifyingly calm. "Mom and Dad are getting older. Can't you just accommodate them a little? Do you have to provoke them until they're angry?" I stared at him in disbelief. I just said the food was a little salty, that it wasn't good for his blood pressure. My mother got right to it. "Still talking back?" Brenda raised the rolling pin again. Kevin raised a hand to stop her, but his next words plunged me into an icy abyss. "Mom, that's enough. Her leg is already broken. Let this be a lesson for her this time." He released my chin, stood up, and brushed off his hands as if he had touched something filthy. "Let her lie on the floor and think about what she's done. We'll take her to the hospital tomorrow." Tomorrow. It was 8 p.m. My leg was swelling rapidly, every heartbeat a tearing pain. "Kevin, no, we have to go now. I'll be crippled." I clutched his pant leg, begging shamelessly. He easily shook me off, looking down at me from above. "Don't worry, you won't die. This is your punishment for being disobedient. Remember that." With that, he turned, put his arm around his mother's shoulders, and walked toward the living room. "Don't be angry anymore, Mom. I ordered that prime rib you love. It's on its way. Dad, didn't you want to watch that war movie yesterday? I found the high-def version." The voices of the 3 of them faded, mingling with the sound of the TV turning on and their laughter. I was left alone in the kitchen, lying on the floor, the physical pain mixing with the ice in my heart. I closed my eyes, and the tears finally broke through. 3 years ago, I was a graduate of a prestigious university, the only daughter cherished by my parents. When I met Kevin, he was so gentle and considerate, vowing to make me the happiest woman in the world. I believed him. Against my parents' objections, I married and moved 1,000 miles away to this city. After the wedding, everything changed. My mother-in-law began to find fault in everything I did. My job was too good, meaning I wasn't focused on the family. My cooking didn't suit their tastes. Even the way I smiled became a reason for her anger. Kevin went from initially trying to mediate to staying silent, and finally, to siding with his parents and criticizing me. A year ago, I had an accidental miscarriage. My mother-in-law called me useless, and my husband began to give me the silent treatment and become emotionally abusive. I wanted a divorce, but they held all my documents and monitored my phone. I had no way to contact my parents, who were so far away. My phone was in my purse in the living room, out of reach. The kitchen window faced the backyard. No one would hear me if I screamed for help. Time ticked by, the pain slowly turning to numbness, my consciousness drifting in and out. I could hear them eating in the living room, the sound of gunshots from the TV, and occasional bursts of laughter. "Kevin, is she really going to be okay?" It was my father-in-law's voice, with a hint of hesitation. "Don't be soft, Dad. We have to teach her a lesson, or she'll be impossible to manage later." Kevin's tone was as casual as if he were discussing the weather. My colleague, old Frank, his wife was disobedient, so he beat her up and sent her to the hospital. Now she's as meek as a kitten. "You can't spoil women." "But her leg is broken," my mother-in-law's voice said. "Don't worry, Mom," I asked around. "A broken bone just needs a few days of rest to heal. We'll deduct the medical bills from her salary. And while we're at it, she should quit that job and focus on serving you two at home." I closed my eyes, my nails digging so deep into my palms that they drew blood, but my heart hurt more. Those words were like knives, slicing away the last shred of attachment I had for this marriage. Late at night, they all went to their rooms to sleep, not a single one of them checking on me. I lay on the cold floor, my left leg completely numb. The darkness enveloped me like a suffocating net. But just as despair was about to swallow me whole, a small voice echoed in my mind. "Eleanor, are you going to die here? Like a stray dog no one cares about?" No, I couldn't. Using my one good arm, I pushed my upper body up inch by inch, every movement bringing a fresh surge of intense pain. About 6 feet away was a corner cabinet. I remembered a discreet drawer there, holding spare kitchen tools, including an old can opener. Its edge was dull, but sharp enough. It took me maybe an hour, maybe longer, to drag myself to that drawer. The moment I pulled it open, I nearly passed out, sweat and tears blurring my vision. The can opener lay there, its cold metal glinting faintly in the dim light. I wasn't going to use it to hurt anyone. That would only bring me more trouble. I used it for something else. To pry open the small ventilation window on the kitchen's back door, a window that had been painted shut and I had never paid attention to. The window was small, but I was slender. Faced with the instinct to survive, the pain seemed to recede. I dragged my broken leg, inch by agonizing inch, through the window frame, tumbling onto the grass of the backyard. The night air was chilling, but I felt a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My phone, wallet, and ID were all inside, confiscated by them. I was penniless, with a broken leg, wearing only a thin nightgown on the late autumn grass. But I was free, at least for now. I got my bearings and began to crawl toward the lights of the nearest neighbor's house, a distance of 30 feet that felt like a marathon. Sharp stones on the lawn tore at my palms and knees, my broken leg leaving a long, winding trail behind me. Just before my consciousness faded, I reached the neighbor's porch and used the last of my strength to knock on the door. An elderly woman opened it. She gasped when she saw my condition. "Help me," I managed to say before my world went black. But I didn't completely lose consciousness. In the haze, I felt myself being lifted, heard the old woman on the phone calling for an ambulance. I also heard her furious whisper, "What a sin! It's the Millers again." The siren of the ambulance grew closer. I was lifted onto a stretcher, and someone covered me with a warm blanket. In the hospital emergency room, under the glaring white lights, doctors and nurses bustled around me. The X-ray showed a comminuted fracture of my left tibia and fibula, requiring immediate surgery. "Where is her family?" a doctor asked. I weakly shook my head. "I don't have any." "I'll sign the forms myself." "How did this happen?" a female nurse asked, her eyes full of sympathy. I stared at the ceiling and said, clearly and deliberately, "My mother-in-law hit me with a rolling pin." My husband watched me lie on the floor all night. The emergency room fell silent for a moment. Then I heard the nurse's sharp intake of breath and saw the doctor's brow furrow deeply. "Call the police," the doctor said, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "No," I stopped the nurse who was reaching for the phone. "Not yet." Everyone looked at me. I lay on the hospital bed, my broken leg temporarily stabilized. The pain had subsided under the effect of medication, but something deeper than physical pain was burning inside me. It was no longer despair, but something cold, sharp, and waiting to erupt. "Doctor," I looked at the attending physician. "I need you to do something for me." "Go ahead," he said. I laid out my plan. At first, the doctor frowned and shook his head, but after hearing all the details, he fell silent for a long time and finally nodded. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "I'm sure." My voice was soft but unusually firm. "This is my only chance." When I woke up, I was in a hospital room, my left leg encased in a thick cast and elevated. The sun was shining brightly outside the window. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting striped patterns on the white sheets. The anesthesia was wearing off, and the pain was beginning to return. But clearer than the pain was the plan in my mind. "You're awake," a gentle female voice spoke. It was the nurse from last night. Her name tag read Jessica. "Nurse Jessica." I tried to make my voice sound weaker. "Thank you. Don't talk. Save your strength." She adjusted my IV drip. In a lower voice, she said, "The police came this morning. I told them you were still unconscious. As you requested, they haven't gone to your house yet." I nodded. "My husband, have they contacted the hospital?" "Not yet," but she hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure you don't want to report it to the police right now? Your mother-in-law's actions constitute aggravated assault. And your husband?" "I know," I interrupted her. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. "But calling the police is just the first step. What I want isn't just punishment. It's complete freedom and justice." Nurse Jessica looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of doubt and sympathy. She must have seen too many victims of domestic violence and too many cases where they ultimately returned to their abusers. "Your phone," she took an old phone from the drawer. "Mrs. Peterson, the neighbor who saved you last night, asked me to give this to you. She said there's a temporary SIM card inside. She also told me to tell you that she can be a witness." I took the old but functional phone, a warmth spreading through me. In this strange city, for 3 years, I had been isolated and monitored by the Millers, with almost no social circle of my own. I never expected that in my most desperate moment, the person who would extend a helping hand would be an elderly neighbor I had only met a few times. Mrs. Peterson also said, Nurse Jessica added, that she had heard shouting and hitting from the Miller house more than once, but every time she wanted to call the police, your mother-in-law would curse her out and chase her away. "She feels terrible for not helping you sooner." I shook my head. "No, she saved my life. That's more than enough." After Nurse Jessica left, I turned on the phone. The contact list was empty. The photo album only had a few landscape pictures taken by Mrs. Peterson, but it was enough. I dialed a number from memory, a number I thought I would never call again. The phone rang 5 times before someone picked up. "Hello." It was my mother's voice, tinged with morning sleepiness and a bit of caution. It was an unfamiliar number. "Mom," I started, my voice choking. "It's me, Eleanor." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by a suppressed sob. "Eleanor, where are you? We haven't heard from you in 6 months. Your father and I have been going out of our minds. The Millers said you ran off with another man. We didn't believe it, but we couldn't find you." "Mom, listen to me." I tried to keep my voice steady. "I was abused by Kevin and his parents. They broke my leg. I'm in the hospital now." "What?" My mother's voice shot up. "Which hospital? Your father and I are coming right now." "No, don't come yet," I said quickly. "Listen to my plan. I need you and Dad to help, but you can't show up now. Once the Millers know I've contacted you, they'll become suspicious. But Eleanor, your leg, I've had surgery. It's not life-threatening." I paused. "Mom, I was wrong for the past 3 years. I shouldn't have disobeyed you and Dad. I shouldn't have married so far away. And I especially shouldn't have stayed silent the first time they laid a hand on me. But now I see things clearly. I want a divorce, and I want them to pay." The line was silent for a few seconds. Then my father's steady, strong voice came on. "Eleanor, it's Dad. Tell me your plan. Your mother and I will fully support you." The tears finally fell. For 3 years, for the sake of so-called love, I had hurt the people who loved me most. My parents had been firmly against this marriage from the start, not because they looked down on Kevin's background, but because they saw the control hidden beneath his gentle demeanor the stubbornness hidden beneath his parents' traditional facade. But I was blinded by love, even saying foolish things like I would disown them if I had to. I wiped my tears. First, I need a lawyer. The best divorce lawyer, one who specializes in domestic abuse and asset disputes. But don't let the Millers know you hired him. No problem. An old classmate of mine is an expert in this field. I'll have him get in touch. Second, I need you to help me gather some things. I listed the necessary items in detail. Proof of my premarital assets, the pay stubs from the bank account that was in my name but controlled by the Millers, and most importantly, the medical records from my miscarriage a year ago, when my mother-in-law intentionally delayed taking me to the hospital, causing me to hemorrhage. That miscarriage, my father's voice trembled. Was it their fault? I didn't know for sure, I said honestly. But at the time, my mother-in-law said it was for the best, since we didn't know if the baby was even a Miller. And Kevin never once stood up for me. I heard my father's muffled curse and my mother's sobbing on the other end. And one more thing, I continued. I need you to rent an apartment for me, a place for me to stay after I'm discharged. It has to be discreet, so they can't find me. Eleanor, just come home. Come home to us, my mother cried, taking the phone. I will, but not yet. I looked at my casted leg. There are some things I have to finish here. After hanging up, I felt a strange sense of calm. 3 years of fear, grievance, and self-doubt had, in this moment, solidified into something hard. I was no longer the submissive Eleanor, desperate to trade appeasement for a scrap of affection. A knock on the door. It was Dr. Hayes, my attending physician. How are you feeling? He checked my IV drip and the cast. Dr. Hayes, I remember you said last night that my fracture could be used for a medical legal evaluation. He paused for a moment, then nodded. A comminuted fracture of the tibia and fibula, even with successful surgery, will very likely have long-term effects on your ability to walk. If you want an evaluation, I can help you contact a forensic examiner. Please help me arrange it, I said. But for now, don't put the results in my medical record. I'll ask you for them when I need them, Doctor. Hayes looked at me intently. Miss Vance, I understand you want a divorce, but domestic abuse cases are notoriously difficult to prove, especially when the police weren't called at the scene. Your mother-in-law could easily claim you fell. Your husband could say he knew nothing about it. I smiled, a smile that made Dr. Hayes pause. That's why we need evidence, I said softly. Ironclad evidence. For the next 3 days, I followed my plan. Through my parents, the lawyer, Mr. Coleman, secretly came to the hospital. We mapped out a detailed strategy. He told me that since I didn't report it immediately, the police were unlikely to file criminal charges unless new evidence emerged. But in a divorce proceeding, domestic violence is a statutory fault, which could entitle me to damages and give me an advantage in the division of assets. The problem, Mr. Coleman said, is proving it. I have a way, I told him my plan. After listening, Mr. Coleman pushed up his glasses. It's very risky, but if it works, the Millers will pay a heavy price. But Miss Vance, are you sure you want to do this? It could be very painful. Compared to the last 3 years, it's nothing, I said calmly. At the same time, I asked Nurse Jessica to casually mention to other patients' families that there was a poor woman in room 304 whose husband had let his family beat her until her leg was broken, and they hadn't even visited once. The news spread like wildfire. By the second day of my hospital stay, several patients' families were already casting sympathetic glances as they passed my room, and I knew that this sympathy would soon turn into outrage against the abusers. This was the public opinion I needed. On the morning of the 3rd day, Nurse Jessica hurried in, her voice low. They're here. Who? My husband and his parents. They're downstairs asking for room 304. She looked at me nervously. You're really not going to see them? Stick to the plan, I nodded, my heart pounding, but my voice remained steady. Pack my things and move me to the spare room, I said. Then, inform Dr. Hayes, I understand. Nurse Jessica took a deep breath and quickly started packing my personal belongings. A few minutes later, I was moved to an empty room in the quietest corner of the floor. It was the farthest from the nurse's station, quiet and discreet, and from the window of my old room, I could see a part of the hallway. I sat in a wheelchair, hidden behind the door, peeking through the crack. A few minutes later, familiar figures appeared. Kevin led the way, carrying a fruit basket, a slight smirk on his face. My mother-in-law Brenda followed, wearing her most expensive silk blouse, her hair perfectly coiffed. My father-in-law, David, had his hands clasped behind his back, looking as if he were inspecting a worksite. They stopped in front of room 304, my old room. Kevin knocked. No answer. He pushed the door open, came out a few seconds later, his brow slightly furrowed. "Where is she?" Brenda's shrill voice echoed in the quiet hallway. "She's probably having some tests done," Kevin said dismissively. "Let's wait." "Wait for what?" "I'll go ask." Brenda marched toward the nurse's station, her voice loud enough for half the floor to hear. "Nurse, where is Eleanor Vance from room 304? We're her family." The nurse on duty was Jessica. She looked up, her expression professional but distant. "May I ask who you are?" "I'm her mother-in-law," Brenda said, jutting out her chin. "Where is she?" "Did she run away? My son was kind enough to visit her, and she has the nerve not to be here." Nurse Jessica slowly flipped through a chart. "The patient in room 304 was moved this morning." "Moved? Moved where?" Kevin walked over, a hint of impatience in his voice. "I'm not at liberty to disclose that." The patient requested privacy. "Privacy?" "We're her family." Brenda's voice rose an octave. "I'm her mother-in-law, and this is her husband. We have the right to know where she is." Their argument had attracted the attention of other patients' families. A few people who had passed my room earlier recognized them and began to whisper, "That's them, the ones who broke their daughter-in-law's leg. They look so respectable, but they're so vicious. I heard they didn't even come to the hospital for 3 days." The whispers weren't loud, but they were loud enough for Kevin to hear. His face darkened, but he tried to maintain a veneer of politeness. "Nurse, my wife's leg is injured. She might be emotionally unstable. We're very worried about her. Please, just tell us where she is." Nurse Jessica looked up, directly at him. "Mr. Miller, Miss Vance has a comminuted fracture of her left tibia and fibula, accompanied by severe soft tissue contusion and signs of hemorrhagic shock. Do you believe that kind of injury is caused by being emotionally unstable?" Kevin's expression froze. Brenda, however, still didn't grasp the gravity of the situation, or perhaps she just didn't care. She fell on her own. "What does it have to do with us? We were kind enough to visit, and this is the attitude we get from your hospital? I want to see your supervisor." At that moment, Dr. Hayes came out of his office, his white coat immaculate, his expression serious. "I am Eleanor Vance's attending physician. Dr. Hayes, you are Miss Vance's family?" "Yes, I'm her husband," Kevin said, speaking before his mother could, trying to salvage the situation. "Dr. Hayes, how is my wife?" "We're very concerned, Doctor." Hayes looked at him in silence for a few seconds. In those few seconds, the entire nurses' station was so quiet you could hear the beeping of the machines. All the nurses, patients, and their families were watching. Then Dr. Hayes spoke, his voice clear and steady, ensuring everyone could hear. "Miss Eleanor Vance was discharged this morning and transferred to a mental health and wellness center. Our preliminary diagnosis indicates she is suffering from severe post-traumatic stress disorder and major depression, likely related to long-term domestic abuse. We have advised her to file a police report and have provided her with a medical legal evaluation. The report shows her fractures were caused by repeated blows from a blunt object, completely inconsistent with injuries from a fall." He paused, his eyes sweeping over the three of them, their faces instantly turning pale. Furthermore, when Miss Vance was lucid, she repeatedly stated that she was afraid to go home, afraid of being beaten again. Therefore, we are respecting her wishes and have not informed you of her location. If you insist on seeing her, I suggest you go through the police or a lawyer." A dead silence. Then, Brenda's shrill voice tore through it. "Lies! You're lying! That little witch fell on her own. She's trying to scam us. What domestic abuse? There's no such thing." But this time, no one was on her side. Every eye in the vicinity was like a needle pointed at them, filled with unconcealed contempt and anger. Kevin's face went from white to red, then to a sickly green. He opened his mouth, as if to say something, but under Dr. Hayes's calm gaze and the murmuring of the crowd, he couldn't utter a single word. His father, David, was the first to react. He pulled his wife, who was still trying to argue, and hissed, "Stop it! Haven't you made enough of a scene?" Then he turned to Dr. Hayes, forcing a smile. "Doctor, there must be a misunderstanding. Eleanor, that child, she might have some mental issues. She used to lie like this. Just tell us which facility she's at. We'll go see her and clear things up." "I'm sorry. Protecting patient privacy is our duty." Dr. Hayes cut him off, his tone leaving no room for argument. "If you have no other business, please do not disturb the other patients." With that, he turned and went back into his office, the door closing with a soft click. The sound was not loud, but it was like a resounding slap across the faces of the three Millers. Under the pointing fingers and judging stares of everyone around them, Kevin finally broke. He grabbed his parents and practically fled from the nurse's station, heading for the elevator. As they passed the room where I was hiding, I saw their expressions clearly through the crack in the door. My mother-in-law's face was beet red, her lips trembling as she muttered curses. My father-in-law's face was ashen, his eyes filled with panic. And Kevin, my husband, the man who 3 days ago had watched me suffer on the floor, now had a look of utter horror and disbelief on his face. He was scared. Scared of what? That I had really gone to a mental institution? That I had called the police? Or that the perfect family image they had so carefully constructed had just completely shattered? The elevator doors closed, taking them away. I sat in my wheelchair and gently closed the door to my room. Nurse Jessica came in, her eyes shining. "Did you see that? Their faces. Oh my God, that was so satisfying." I nodded, but I didn't feel the catharsis I had expected, only a cold, calm emptiness. "This is just the beginning," I said softly. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Coleman. "I have collected some of the evidence. Also, Kevin Miller's company just contacted me to inquire about your situation. It seems they received an anonymous tip about him being suspected of domestic abuse and false imprisonment." I replied, "Proceed as planned. Let the anonymous tip simmer for a while." After the three Millers left the hospital, my room returned to a state of quiet. But I knew this was just the calm before the storm. They wouldn't let this go. Nurse Jessica poured me a glass of water, her expression worried. "Especially your mother-in-law. A person like her, after being publicly humiliated like that today, will definitely try to get revenge." I took the glass, the warmth seeping into my palm. "I know. That's why we need to be prepared." Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but the area code was local. I motioned for Nurse Jessica to be quiet, answered the call, and pressed the record button. "Eleanor." It was Kevin's voice, tight with anger but trying to sound calm. "Where are you? Tell me right now." "Where I am has nothing to do with you anymore." My voice was light, almost weak. It was true. The anesthesia had worn off completely, and waves of pain were washing over my leg. "I'm your husband. How does it have nothing to do with me?" His voice rose, then he immediately lowered it. "Eleanor, stop making a scene. Let's just forget about what happened today. Come home with me, and we'll talk properly." "Come home?" I let out a soft laugh, which silenced him for a moment. "Go back to that house where you watched me get my leg broken? Go back to that house where I was writhing in pain on the floor while you all sat in the living room eating prime rib and watching TV? "That was an accident," Kevin said quickly. "Mom didn't mean it. She just has a short temper. And you were at fault too. Why did you have to talk back? Can't you just accommodate her a little?" The same old story. For 3 years, every conflict was my fault. I was too strong-willed, not gentle enough, not eager to please. My job was too demanding, so I didn't care for the family. They were always right, always just trying to do what was best for me. "Kevin," I cut him off, my voice turning cold. "I have a comminuted fracture of my left tibia and fibula. It will take at least 3 months before I can walk on it, and I might have a limp for the rest of my life. This wasn't an accident. This was aggravated assault, And you were an accomplice. What are you talking about? He was clearly panicking now. What accomplice? Eleanor, I'm warning you. Don't go around saying things like that. If you dare call the police, if you dare say anything. Or what? I shot back. Will you beat me again? Or will you do what you did before? Confiscate my phone, my ID, my debit card, and lock me in the house? I could hear his heavy breathing on the other end. After a few seconds, Kevin's tone changed, becoming soft. It was the same fake tenderness from when we were dating, a tenderness I hadn't heard in 3 years. Eleanor, don't be like this. If we have problems, we can sit down and solve them. Have you forgotten how good we used to be? I swear it will never happen again. Come home. I'll make Mom apologize to you. Can we start over? If it had been the old me, I might have softened. But the me of today only felt nauseated. Kevin, I said calmly, there's nothing for us to talk about. My lawyer will contact you to discuss the divorce. Also, my medical evaluation is ready. My lawyer has advised me to file a police report. Whether I do or not depends on your future behavior. Lawyer? What lawyer? Eleanor, where did you get a lawyer? Did your parents find one for you? I knew it. Your parents have always looked down on me, looked down on our family. Now they finally found a chance to break us up, haven't they? His voice became shrill again, the feigned tenderness instantly torn away, revealing the possessive control freak underneath. It has nothing to do with them, I said. I'm the one who wants a divorce. And the lawyer's fees are being paid with my own salary. Is there a problem? Oh, that's right. For the past few years, my debit card has been with your mother. She only gave me a few $100s a month for spending money. When we get divorced, we'll settle that debt properly. Kevin was furious. Eleanor, do you have to burn everything to the ground? Let me tell you, you can have a divorce, but you won't get a single penny. You're my wife. What's yours is mine. And don't think you can hide from me. I have connections at the hospital. Then go ahead and try. I cut him off and hung up. My hand was trembling slightly, but I felt a sense of exhilaration. For the first time in 3 years, I had fought back so clearly. For the first time, I had said everything I had been holding in. Nurse Jessica looked at me worriedly. Are you okay? Do you think he can really find you here? Not for a while, I shook my head. Dr. Hayes has given instructions. My information is confidential. Besides, he has bigger problems to deal with right now. What? I opened the text message Mr. Coleman had just sent and showed it to Nurse Jessica. It was a series of screenshots from the city's largest online forum. The sensational headline was a direct accusation. Mid-level manager at a major corporation, Kevin Miller, suspected of long-term domestic abuse, resulting in wife's hospitalization with a broken leg. A wolf in sheep's clothing. The poster claimed to be an insider, describing in detail how Kevin and his parents had abused his wife, controlled her finances, and left her without medical attention after breaking her leg. The post included a picture of me in my hospital bed, with my face blurred and a partial X-ray. The writing was fluent, the details were credible, and it was incredibly compelling. This is... Nurse Jessica's eyes widened. Mr. Coleman arranged it. I put my phone away. An anonymous tip, but based entirely on facts. Kevin's company is very sensitive about its public image. A scandal like this will be a huge blow to him. Sure enough, an hour later, Kevin's calls started coming in frantically. I didn't answer. He sent a barrage of texts, starting with threats, then pleading, and finally, rage. Eleanor, you're ruthless. Did you post that article? The company executives called me in for a meeting. Are you satisfied now? Answer the phone. Let's talk terms. What do you want? How much money? Name your price. You bitch, you'll regret this. I put my phone on silent, no longer paying attention to the rabid dogs barking. Why should I be merciful to my enemy? In the afternoon, the doctor came to check on me, bringing new information. Kevin came to the hospital again. He tried to see the vice president to get your medical records and location, doctor, Hayes said, his expression serious. The vice president is a mentor of mine. I managed to stop him, but he won't give up easily. Also, your mother-in-law is causing a scene in the lobby downstairs, claiming the hospital is holding her daughter-in-law against her will. She's threatening to call the police. Let her, I said. Dr. Hayes was taken aback. The police coming would be even better, I explained. I can directly report them for domestic abuse. Even though I didn't report it at the time, they're the ones escalating it now. When the police come, they'll have to take a statement and file a report. An official police report will be official evidence. Dr. Hayes looked at me, his eyes filled with a complex expression. Miss Vance, you're very different from before. Before? Before, she was gentle, obedient, always smiling. Even when her heart was breaking, she thought patients would earn respect, that love could change everything. People change, Dr. Hayes, I said softly, when there's no other way out. After Dr. Hayes left, I asked Nurse Jessica to contact Mrs. Peterson. Half an hour later, the kind elderly woman appeared in my room, carrying a thermos of chicken soup. You poor child, you've suffered so much. She touched my hand, her eyes red. I knew from the start that family was no good. You were so lovely when you first moved in. In just a few years, you've become so thin. Mrs. Peterson, thank you for saving me. I held her hand tightly. But I might need your help with one more thing. Just say the word. If I can help, I will. The Millers might come to you for trouble, asking about that night. If the police come, tell them the truth, that you heard the fighting and saw me crawl out. But if the Millers come, just say you don't know anything, that you went to bed early and didn't hear a thing. Mrs. Peterson was confused. But why? I saw everything. I want to be your witness. It's not time yet, I explained patiently. I want to let them make their move first. The higher they climb, the harder they'll fall. If I lay out all the evidence now, they'll have time to prepare their story, maybe even try to frame me. I want to wait until they've dug their own grave, until they've put on a full performance for the police and everyone else, and then I'll deliver the final, devastating blow with the evidence. Mrs. Peterson didn't fully understand, but she nodded firmly. I'll listen to you. Whatever you say, I'll do. After seeing Mrs. Peterson off, it was already dark. The city lights began to twinkle, and I could see the neon signs of the downtown area from my window. My phone lit up again. This time, it was my mother-in-law, Brenda's number. I answered without saying a word. Eleanor Vance, you listen to me. Her shrill, harsh voice came through. The background was noisy, as if she were still in the hospital lobby. I don't care what games you're playing. Get your ass out here right now. Or I'll make you regret it. You think you can just hide? Let me tell you, if my son can find you once, he can find you 100 times. I know where your parents live. Do you believe I'll go to their workplaces and cause a scene so they can't even show their faces in public? I listened quietly. When she finished her tirade, I said softly, Mom. The other end fell silent. For 3 years, this was the first time I had called her Mom since she broke my leg. Everything you just said, I've recorded it. My voice was calm, without a ripple. Threats and intimidation are all evidence. Please, continue. The more you say, the better. I'll hand it all over to the police and my lawyer. Also, feel free to cause a scene at my parents' workplaces. But my father is a retired military officer, and my mother is an award-winning high school teacher. Who do you think people will believe? A respected veteran and a beloved teacher? Or an old woman who broke her daughter-in-law's leg and is now throwing a tantrum in a hospital? Who are you calling an old woman? You bitch! You still... I cut her off. Your son's company executives have probably already spoken to him, haven't they? If they find out his mother is this kind of person, do you think they'll keep him? After all, what company wants an employee who can't even handle his own family affairs and causes a citywide scandal? You dare. If you dare to cost my son his job, I'll kill you. You and your son were the ones who ruined my leg and my life first. My voice finally wavered slightly, but I quickly suppressed it. By the way, you should remind your son that under that online post, someone has already dug up a past work mistake of his that cost the company money. When a wall is about to fall, everyone gives it a push. How many more skeletons do you think he has in his closet? The other end was dead silent, only heavy, ragged breathing. One last piece of advice, I said. Stop calling. Stop causing trouble. Wait quietly for my lawyer to contact you about the divorce. If you cooperate, I might consider not pressing criminal charges for the assault. If you continue to harass me, I paused, then said, word by word, I will make sure the Miller family name is utterly ruined in this city. With that, I hung up and blocked the number. Then I opened my chat and sent a message to Mr. Coleman. We can proceed to the next step. Also, find a way for Kevin Miller's company to accidentally hear the recording of his mother threatening me today. After sending the message, I leaned back against the headboard and looked at my thick cast. The pain was still there, but it was no longer unbearable. The day after I hung up on my mother-in-law, the HR department of Kevin Miller's company contacted Mr. Coleman again. This time, their attitude was completely different. Mr. Coleman, regarding Mr. Kevin Miller's family matters, our company in principle does not interfere. However, some untrue statements have recently appeared online, which have had a certain impact on the company's image. The HR manager's voice came clearly through the speakerphone in the quiet hospital room. We would like to know if Miss Eleanor Vance truly intends to file a police report. If so, approximately when? Mr. Coleman glanced at me. My client is indeed considering filing a police report, but the specific timing depends on the attitude of Mr. Miller's family. Mr. Coleman's tone was professional and distant. However, the online posts were not published by us. As a lawyer, I would advise your company to be more concerned with whether your employee's behavior violates company policy rather than trying to interfere in an employee's domestic dispute. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. I understand, but the project Kevin Miller is in charge of is at a critical stage. If his personal problems affect his work, that is an internal matter for your company, Mr. Coleman said flatly. My client is only concerned with two things: the divorce and the legal accountability for the assault. Also, a reminder, Kevin Miller's mother called and threatened my client yesterday. We have saved the relevant recording. If a similar situation occurs, we will immediately report it to the police and consider making parts of the recording public. Threats? The HR manager's voice changed. Mr. Coleman, we were completely unaware of this. Now you are, Mr. Coleman said. My client hopes for a peaceful resolution, but the prerequisite is that the other party ceases all harassment and threats. Otherwise, we will not rule out using all available legal measures. After the call, Mr. Coleman put away his phone. Kevin Miller won't be at that company for much longer. They're currently bidding for a government contract and are extremely concerned with their image of social responsibility. They will absolutely not tolerate this kind of scandal. Good. I looked down at my phone. Kevin had sent a flood of messages, starting with rage, then pleading, and now panic. Eleanor, I was wrong. Can we please talk? The company is about to fire me. You know, it wasn't easy for me to get to this position. Mom knows she was wrong. She was just being irrational. The lawyer said we can discuss whatever you want. The house, the car, the money, it's all on the table. Don't ruin me. I'm begging you. I didn't reply to a single message. In the afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. My father-in-law, David Miller. He came alone, carrying a fruit basket, looking a bit awkward at the door. Nurse Jessica was about to stop him, but I shook my head. Let him in. David came in, placed the fruit on the nightstand, and stood at the foot of the bed without sitting. He looked much older than he had 3 days ago, with swollen bags under his eyes and a slight stoop in his back. Eleanor, he began, his voice hoarse. How's your leg? As you can see, it's broken, in a cast. I can't get out of bed for 3 months, I said calmly. I might have a limp for the rest of my life. His facial muscles twitched. He looked down, not daring to meet my eyes. That day, I couldn't stop your mother. You weren't unable to stop her, I corrected him. You thought it would be good to teach me a lesson. Your son thought so too, didn't he? David opened his mouth, but ultimately said nothing. The room was silent for a long time, the sound of traffic from outside making it feel even quieter. Eleanor, he finally spoke again, his voice lower. Do you really have to get a divorce? Kevin knows he was wrong. He really does. Look, he's about to lose his job. That's a big enough blow. And your mother, Brenda, she regrets it too. She just has a hot temper. She's not a bad person at heart. We're a family. What can't we get through? Why do we have to make such a big scene and get divorced? I looked at him. The man who, in my memory, was always quiet and taciturn, always deferential to his wife, now had a look of exhaustion and fear on his face. He wasn't regretting what happened to my leg, nor was he regretting his son's violence. He was afraid of the scandal, of his son losing his job, of the Miller family losing face. A family. I repeated those two words, letting out a soft laugh. Dad, in the past 3 years, have you ever truly considered me family? David was stunned. The first year I married into your family, you took my debit card, saying you would manage it for me. Did you say a word? Every day after work, I had to cook, wash dishes, and clean the house, serving the 3 of you. If I did anything to displease your wife, she would scold me. Did you ever try to reason with her? I got pregnant, then had a miscarriage and was hospitalized. Your wife called me useless. Did you ever comfort me? This time, my leg was broken. I was lying on the floor, and you were standing right there, watching. Did you consider me family then? I fired off a series of questions. My voice wasn't loud, but each word was like a nail hammered into David's face. His face grew paler, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. I thought, he stammered. I thought those were issues between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, between you kids. It wasn't my place to interfere. Not your place to interfere? Or you simply didn't care? I cut him off. In your eyes, I was never family. I was just a tool you spent money to bring home to serve you, to have children, and to earn money, right? That's not true. Eleanor, how can you say that? It was as if I had hit a nerve. His voice rose. How have we, the Millers, treated you poorly? We gave you food, clothes. Kevin never cheated on you. Why are you so ungrateful? Gave me food and clothes. I almost laughed out loud. My salary was double Kevin's. For the past 3 years, I gave all my earnings to you. The mortgage on the house you live in was paid by me. More than half of the household expenses were covered by me. Who was supporting whom? David was speechless. Dad, I changed how I addressed him, my voice growing colder. You came today to plead on behalf of your son and your wife, to ask me not to get divorced, not to call the police, not to make a big deal out of this, right? He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right then, I'll give you a clear answer. I looked him straight in the eye, saying word by word, I am getting a divorce. I will hold them accountable for the domestic abuse. As for whether I make a big deal out of it, that depends on your future behavior. If you agree to a divorce settlement, return my salary from the past 3 years, my share of the mortgage payments, and compensation for my emotional distress, and we settle things clearly, I might consider not pressing criminal charges. If you don't agree, or if you continue to harass me and my family, I paused. I will not only call the police, but I will also post all the evidence online. I will go to Kevin's company, to your apartment complex, to every place where people know you, and I will tell every single person how the Miller family broke their daughter-in-law's leg and then threatened her. Who do you think will have it worse then? Your son, who will be unemployable, or the Miller family, who will be unable to live in this city? David took a step back, as if seeing me for the first time. His lips trembled, his finger pointing at me. You're vicious, Eleanor. I never knew you could be so vicious. Vicious? I smiled until tears came to my eyes. When my leg was broken and I could have been left with a permanent limp, you didn't think that was vicious? When I was lying on the cold floor while your whole family ate and watched TV in the living room, you didn't think anyone was vicious? When I called for help, and your son said this was my punishment for being disobedient, you didn't think that was vicious? This viciousness of mine, I wiped my tears, my voice as cold as ice, was taught to me, piece by piece, by the Miller family. David finally stumbled away. The fruit basket left on the nightstand was like a clumsy joke. Nurse Jessica came in and quietly picked up the fruit. I'll throw this out for you. No need, I said. Give it to your colleagues at the nurses' station to share. Just say my father-in-law sent it as a get-well gift. Nurse Jessica looked at me, at a loss for words. Do you think I'm being too cruel? I asked. She shook her head, then nodded. I just think you've become very formidable, completely different from the day you were brought in, because I don't want to die anymore. I looked out the window. The sun was beautiful. Lying on the kitchen floor, waiting to die, I suddenly had a revelation. Why do bad people always get their way? Because good people are always reflecting on themselves, always considering the bigger picture, always enduring. Bad people never think about these things. They just want to take. If they're not happy, they lash out. If something goes wrong, they evade responsibility. So if they really agree to the divorce and compensation, you won't call the police anymore? Nurse Jessica asked. I will definitely call the police, I said calmly. Domestic violence is a crime, not something that can be erased with a little money. But how and when I report it is up to me. As for the compensation, that's what they owe me, not charity. Nurse Jessica nodded, not fully understanding, but resolute. In any case, I support you. Just let me know if you need anything. In the evening, Mr. Coleman brought new information. Kevin Miller has agreed to a divorce settlement. He said the condition is that you don't press charges, don't call the police, and don't release any more information publicly. As for the assets, he's willing to give you the house, since you were the one paying the mortgage anyway. He's also offering to pay you $30,000 in compensation. $30,000? I laughed. My salary and bonuses over the past 3 years exceeded $100,000, all of which is in their hands. The current market value of the house is only about $50,000 more than the outstanding loan, and it's a marital asset. He broke my leg, which could cause a permanent disability. He wants to settle the emotional distress, medical bills, and lost wages with $30,000. This is just his first offer. We can negotiate, Mr. Coleman said. However, he wants to do it as quickly as possible, preferably before you're discharged from the hospital. He seems to be in a hurry. Of course he's in a hurry. I showed Mr. Coleman the screenshots from Kevin Miller's company's internal forum on my phone. An anonymous user had posted more details, including how Kevin had previously taken kickbacks and filed false expense reports. The amounts weren't huge, but at this sensitive time, it was a fatal blow. His company has given him an ultimatum. After reading it, Mr. Coleman understood immediately. Either resign with some dignity or be fired. If he's fired, given the current job market in his industry, it will be very difficult for him to find a comparable position. So he needs to quickly resolve things with me, then go to his company and claim that the family dispute has been peacefully resolved in an attempt to keep his job or at least get a decent severance package. So what's your plan? Stall, I said. Just one word. Stall. Don't agree, but don't refuse either. Just say, my injuries are severe and I need time to think. At the same time, let the online news ferment for a few more days. Wait until his company can't wait any longer and fires him. That's when he'll truly be at a dead end. I looked at Mr. Coleman. What I want isn't a house with decades of mortgage payments left, nor is it $30,000. What I want is for him to taste what despair feels like. Mr. Coleman looked at me intently, finally nodding. I understand, but stalling for too long has its risks. What if Kevin gets desperate and does something reckless? That's why the recording of his mother threatening me can accidentally fall into the hands of his company's management. A copy for them, I said. Let them know the Millers not only commit domestic violence but also threaten the victim. That way, the company, in order to sever ties, will act more quickly. Mr. Coleman noted down the key points and stood up to leave. He paused at the door. Miss Vance, there's something I'm not sure if I should ask. Go ahead. How long can the satisfaction of revenge last? He asked bluntly. After the divorce, you have a whole life ahead of you. Is it worth spending so much time and energy on these people? I was silent for a long time. Outside the window, the sun was setting, painting the horizon a blood red. Mr. Coleman, this isn't about revenge, I said softly. This is so that in the future, every night when I wake up from a nightmare and touch the leg that may never fully heal, I can tell myself that I did everything I could. I made the person who hurt me pay the price. That's the only way I can truly move on, instead of being trapped for the rest of my life in that kitchen on that night. Mr. Coleman nodded, said no more, and left. The room returned to its quiet state. I picked up my phone and sent a message to my parents, letting them know I was safe. My mother replied quickly, saying the apartment was rented. The lawyer was paid, and I should focus on my recovery and not be afraid of anything. Your father and I will always be here for you. That last sentence brought tears to my eyes. That's right. I still had support. I wasn't alone. And Kevin Miller would soon discover that the wife he thought he could control and trample on at will had a force behind her that he couldn't afford to provoke. The news that Kevin Miller had agreed to a divorce settlement was like a stone thrown into a pond, creating ripples I hadn't anticipated. The next afternoon, I received a call from my mother-in-law, Brenda, from a new number. Her voice was unusually weary, even carrying a hint of pleading I had never heard before. "Eleanor," she began, which startled me for a moment, thinking she had the wrong number. "I want to talk to you." I said nothing, waiting for her to continue. "Look, Kevin knows he was wrong. He really does. He's giving you the house and paying you compensation. Can't we just part on good terms? Why do we have to go to court and become a laughingstock?" She paused, her voice lowering. "I'm sorry. I was wrong that day. I was just so angry, I lost control. You know my temper. When I get angry, I can't control myself. But you were in the wrong too, right? If you had just accommodated me a little, I wouldn't have—" "An apology," I said softly, cutting her off. "Are you talking about the time you broke my leg?" The other end fell silent. "If that's what you're talking about, then I don't accept it." My voice was calm, devoid of anger. "An apology is for an unintentional mistake. You held a rolling pin and hit me once, twice, 3 times, until my bone broke. That's aggravated assault. If I had had a knife in my hand at that moment, who do you think would be lying in the hospital right now?" What are you saying?" Her facade shattered in an instant, her voice becoming shrill again. "Eleanor Vance, I'm trying to be nice to you, aren't I? Let me tell you, don't push your luck. We're giving you the house, which is more than you deserve. What more do you want? Do you really think the Millers are afraid of you? Then let's not negotiate." I said, "Let Mr. Coleman talk to you. And by the way, the recording of you threatening me yesterday, I've already given it to my lawyer. If I receive any more harassing calls or if my parents are disturbed, that recording will immediately be on the desks of the police and Kevin Miller's company executives." "You recorded me?" "You bitch! You dared to record me!" she screamed. "Why wouldn't I?" I asked. "You dare to hit people. What's a little recording? And another thing, don't let me hear the word bitch again, or I'll show you what a bitch who's been pushed to the edge can do." With that, I hung up. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, it was Kevin, using another new number. "Eleanor, what the hell do you want?" His voice was hoarse, filled with a mix of exhaustion and rage, like a drunk man. "Mom apologized to you. We're giving you the house. We're giving you the money. What more do you want? Do you have to drive my entire family to our deaths before you're satisfied?" "Kevin." I leaned against the headboard and looked at my cast. "Are you in pain right now?" He was taken aback. "The company is talking to you. You might lose your job. Are you in pain? Your mother had to humble herself and apologize. Are you in pain? Your father is caught in the middle. Are you in pain?" I asked, one question after another. I'll tell you something." I cut him off. "For the past 3 years, every single day of my life has been 100 times more painful than what you're feeling now. When I was lying on the kitchen floor with a broken leg, listening to your whole family eating and laughing in the living room, I was in 1,000 times more pain than you are now. Kevin, this is just the beginning. What you did to me, I will return to you, piece by piece." I heard heavy breathing on the other end, then the sound of something shattering. He was breaking things. "You're crazy! Eleanor Vance, you're crazy!" he screamed. "That's right. You all drove me crazy," I laughed. "Enjoy it. It's not over yet." I hung up again. Blocked the number. The world was quiet again. But I knew this was just a brief lull. Neither Kevin nor his mother were the types to take things lying down, especially Brenda, who was used to getting her way. After hitting a wall with me this time, she would definitely not let it go. Sure enough, in the afternoon, Nurse Jessica rushed in, her face pale. "Eleanor, your mother-in-law is downstairs again." This time she brought 2 other people with her. Looks like relatives. They're yelling in the lobby, demanding to see you, saying the hospital is hiding you, and they want an explanation. The security guards are trying to stop them, but they're making a huge scene, crying and shouting, attracting a large crowd. Where's security? They're there, but your in-laws are lying on the floor. Dr. Hayes has already reported it to the hospital administration, but this is having a terrible impact. And they seem to know you're on this floor. They're blocking the elevators and the stairwell, asking everyone they see where Eleanor Vance from room 304 is. I frowned. It seemed David had let some information slip during his visit yesterday, or maybe Kevin really did have a connection at the hospital. What exactly are they saying? They're saying you have mental problems, that you're violent, that you hit your mother-in-law at home and then hurt yourself, and now you're hiding in the hospital to frame them. Nurse Jessica was indignant on my behalf. That's ridiculous. It's clearly them. Call the police, I said. Huh? Call the police. Tell them someone is disturbing the peace at the hospital and slandering a patient, I said calmly. Let the police handle it. But if the police come, they'll definitely say, let them talk. I cut her off. The more they talk, the better. Jessica, please use your phone to record them causing a scene downstairs, especially every time they say I hit someone or hurt myself. Don't miss a single word. Nurse Jessica's eyes lit up. I get it. Evidence. Right. Also, inform Dr. Hayes and the administration that the hospital doesn't need to get involved. Leave it to the police. If the police need me, I can give a statement, but I won't see them before that. Nurse Jessica nodded and hurried off. I picked up my phone and texted Mr. Coleman. The Millers are causing a scene at the hospital. I've called the police. Get ready. We can start the next phase. Mr. Coleman replied quickly. Understood. The documents are prepared and can be released at any time. Half an hour later, I heard police sirens from downstairs. Another 20 minutes passed, and everything went quiet again. Nurse Jessica returned, excitedly holding up her phone. I got everything. Your mother-in-law said every nasty thing you can imagine. She even lay on the floor and claimed the hospital staff hit her. She wasn't even afraid when the police came. She just kept on wailing. The police finally had to threaten her with arrest before she got up on her own. But the police still took them away, said they were going to the station for mediation. What about the two people she brought with her? They said they were your relatives, an aunt and a cousin. At first, they were chiming in, but when they saw the police were serious, they backed off, quickly distancing themselves, saying they didn't know anything and were just dragged along for support. Nurse Jessica rolled her eyes. What a bunch of fake relatives. As expected, a family like the Millers wouldn't have any genuine relatives. What did the police say? They said they would make a record. They have your information and said they might need you to come to the station to give a statement once you're feeling better. Nurse Jessica paused, but the police seemed a bit biased. They said your mother-in-law is elderly and her emotional outburst was understandable, and that you should be understanding too. It's a family matter. Try to resolve it through negotiation. I laughed coldly. A family matter again, understanding again. Domestic violence is never just a family matter. It's a crime. But too many people, including some law enforcement officers, still have the mindset that it's hard to judge family disputes and prefer to mediate and settle things. It doesn't matter. I have plenty of patience. In the evening, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was Kevin Miller's direct supervisor, Director Sullivan. He was in his 40s, dressed in a neat suit, carrying a fruit basket, looking a bit embarrassed at the door. Miss Vance, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm the director of Kevin Miller's department. My name is Sullivan. I had Nurse Jessica let him in. Director Sullivan, please have a seat. I indicated a chair. Director Sullivan stood at the foot of the bed, wringing his hands. Miss Vance, I've heard about your situation. First, on behalf of the company, I'd like to express my sympathies. We were all very saddened to hear about what happened. Thank you, I nodded, waiting for him to continue. Kevin, he's a capable worker, but he clearly has some issues with handling his family relationships. Director Sullivan chose his words carefully. The company had high hopes for him, but his recent performance has been poor, with constant mistakes, and the public opinion outside has had a very negative impact on the company's image. "So, you're here to ask me to back down?" I asked directly. My bluntness caught Director Sullivan off guard. He immediately gave a wry smile. "Let me be frank. The company hopes this matter can be resolved quickly. If the two of you can reach a peaceful settlement and get divorced without escalating the situation further, the company can consider giving Kevin a dignified resignation with all the necessary compensation. But if this continues to escalate and affects the government contract the company is bidding for, then the company might be forced to take some stricter measures." "I see. Kevin is a pawn. The company wants to protect the contract. If I'm willing to let this go quietly, the company will let him save face and resign. If I make a fuss, the company will fire him and maybe even investigate his past issues to sever ties completely." "Director Sullivan, I understand the company's position," I said slowly, "but I am the victim. I am the one with the broken leg. Kevin and his family have yet to offer me a sincere apology. They even came to the hospital to cause a scene and slander me, claiming I have mental problems. Do you think I should endure all of this for the sake of your company's contract?" Director Sullivan's expression grew more embarrassed. "Of course not. An apology is due, and compensation should be paid. What I mean is, resolving this within a reasonable scope is better for both sides. After all, you were husband and wife. Making things too ugly won't necessarily be good for your future, right? A mix of carrot and stick. First sympathy, then a veiled threat from the company, and finally, advice that seemed to be for my own good. Unfortunately, I wasn't buying it." "Director Sullivan, my demands are simple." I looked at him. "First, Kevin must publicly admit to his abusive behavior in writing and apologize. Second, he must compensate me according to legal standards, including medical expenses, lost wages, emotional distress, and the salary he and his family controlled for the past 3 years. Third, he and his family must never harass me or my family again. If he can do these 3 things, I can refrain from pressing charges and escalating the situation." Director Sullivan's face changed. "A public admission? Isn't that a bit much?" "After all, Kevin still has to work in this industry. That's his problem," I cut him off. "He should have thought about the consequences when he acted. If he doesn't even have the courage to admit his mistakes, why should he expect my forgiveness?" "Miss Vance," Director Sullivan, "you can go now." I dismissed him. "This is my bottom line. If Kevin agrees, have his lawyer contact Mr. Coleman. If he doesn't, then we'll see each other in court. As for whether your company wants to fire him or keep him, that's your internal affair. It has nothing to do with me." Director Sullivan stood there, his face flushing and paling, finally sighing and putting down the fruit basket. "Well then, Miss Vance, please rest well. I will pass on your message to Kevin." He walked to the door, then turned back, as if wanting to say something else. "Is there anything else?" I asked. "Miss Vance, you've changed a lot," he finally said. "I met you a few times before. You were a very gentle person." "People change," I repeated what I had said to Dr. Hayes. "When gentleness is not met with respect, but with escalating harm, the only choice is to pick up a weapon." Director Sullivan gave me a long look, said no more, and left. After he left, Nurse Jessica whispered, "That Director Sullivan seems like a reasonable person." "He's not reasonable," I shook my head. "He just weighed the pros and cons and chose the option that was most beneficial to him and his company. If Kevin were an indispensable talent at the company today, or if my family were weak and easily bullied, he might have shown a different face. That's human nature. That's reality. That's why you can't rely on the kindness of others. You can only make yourself stronger." In the evening, Mr. Coleman sent over a file. It was a detailed report of Kevin's kickbacks and false expense reports, which had been anonymously sent to his company's disciplinary department and the IRS. There was also a complaint letter written in the name of an anonymous insider, detailing how Kevin used his position for personal gain, deceived his superiors, and how a person of his character was unfit to represent the company in a government project. Tomorrow morning, these documents will appear where they need to appear. The video of your mother-in-law causing a scene at the hospital today, I've edited it a bit. It will be posted on several popular local forums and short video platforms later, Mr. Coleman texted. The title is, Vicious Mother-in-Law Wreaks Havoc at Hospital. Slanders daughter-in-law with broken leg and mental illness to cover up domestic abuse. Post it? I replied. Post it. The moment I hit send, I felt no hesitation, nor the anticipated thrill of revenge, only a cold calm. I knew this would push the Miller family to the absolute brink. They would go crazy, they would fight back, they would do even more extreme things. But I was no longer afraid. I used to be afraid of losing my marriage, of being judged by others, of disappointing my parents, of facing an unknown future. But now, the marriage was just a cage. The judgment had never stopped. My parents were my solid support, and no matter how bad the future was, it couldn't be worse than lying on the kitchen floor waiting to die. Late at night, my phone lit up again. This time, it was a text from Kevin. There was only one line, but it made my pupils contract. Eleanor Vance, you want to play games? I'll play with you to the end. Your father is a retired military officer, right? Your mother is a high school teacher, right? What do you think they'll think when they find out what their precious daughter has been up to? It had come. When the last shred of pretense was torn away, when the mask of decency could no longer be maintained, they finally bared their ugliest fangs, threatening to attack my weakness. My parents? I stared at the message for a long time, then slowly typed a reply, each word deliberate. Kevin Miller, let me tell you something too. If my parents are harmed in any way because of this, if they so much as receive a single harassing phone call, I will show you what it means to truly play to the end. You and your entire family, not a single one of you will get away. Don't believe me? Try me. After pressing send, Kevin Miller's threat was like a venomous snake, baring its fangs in the dead of night. I didn't immediately tell my parents. They were older. My father had a heart condition, and my mother had high blood pressure. A sudden shock could be dangerous. Besides, I believed Kevin was, for the moment, just bluffing. He was already overwhelmed with his own problems and likely didn't have the energy to actually do anything to my parents, but I had to be prepared. I messaged Mr. Coleman, briefly explaining the situation. He replied quickly, Understood. I will contact some friends in your hometown and have them keep an eye on the area around your parents' house. I also suggest your parents take a temporary leave and stay with relatives for a few days to avoid the trouble. I took his second piece of advice. I called my mother, trying to sound as casual as possible, telling her the Millers might get desperate and make harassing calls, so they should block unknown numbers and go stay with my uncle for a few days. Eleanor, did something happen? My mother's voice was full of anxiety. Are they bothering you again? No, I'm just being cautious. I tried to keep my voice steady. I can only be at ease if you and Dad are safe. By the way, isn't Dad's old army buddy, Captain Ramirez, in the local police department? If it's convenient, maybe briefly mention the situation to him. He doesn't need to do anything, just so he's aware. My mother was silent for a few seconds. Eleanor, tell me the truth. What are you planning? I know you're upset and resentful, but don't do anything reckless. Don't get yourself into trouble. Mom, I won't. I gripped the phone tightly. I'm just taking back what's rightfully mine and making them pay the price they deserve. Within the bounds of the law, I won't cross any lines. After hanging up, I looked out at the pitch-black night. The city was sleepless, the lights of the distant skyscrapers twinkling like countless cold eyes. Kevin Miller, you want to play dirty? Fine, I'm ready. The next morning, Nurse Jessica brought my breakfast, her expression a little strange. Eleanor, have you seen the news? What news? She handed me her phone. The local morning news had sent out a push notification. The headline caught my eye. Family member of government employee suspected of domestic abuse. Online rumors spark controversy. The article was vague, not mentioning Kevin by name, but implying the abuser was a family member of a public servant. It also quoted some online comments suggesting the victim's mental state was unstable and her account might not be credible. It concluded by urging the public to be rational about online information and avoid hurting innocent people. Nurse Jessica was red with anger. They're twisting the facts. They bought the media. They didn't buy them. I calmly finished reading. They're applying pressure. Kevin's father, David, was a minor department head at the Department of Transportation before he retired. Even though he's retired, he still has some connections. It's not surprising he would use those connections to find a friendly media outlet to publish a balancing piece, buying his son some time. So what do? Just let them slander you like this? Why are you in such a hurry? I put the phone down. This kind of vague article can't hurt me. On the contrary, it will enrage those who know the truth. Sure enough, by noon, the comment section of that article had exploded. Countless anonymous accounts flooded in, some directly named Kevin Miller and his company. Some posted screenshots of his company's internal disciplinary action, the work of Mr. Coleman. Someone even posted the video of Brenda throwing a tantrum in the hospital lobby the day before. I'm a security guard at that hospital. I can testify. The old woman in the video is the vicious mother-in-law who beat her daughter-in-law and then came to the hospital to cause trouble. Kevin Miller is my former colleague. This guy is always trying to take advantage of people and has made inappropriate advances towards female colleagues. He's been reported several times. The victim is my neighbor. She's an incredibly gentle person. In the 3 years she's been married into the Miller family, she's been tormented into a shadow of her former self. I once heard her mother-in-law call her a barren hen who can't even lay an egg. They're truly not human. I support her in calling the police. No mercy for domestic abusers. The tide of public opinion turned completely in my favor. The article that was meant to be a whitewash had become a catalyst, making the situation even more heated. In the afternoon, Mr. Coleman brought 2 pieces of news, one good, one bad. The good news was that Kevin Miller's company couldn't withstand the pressure and officially issued a statement. Employee Mr. Miller's personal family matters have seriously affected his work and the company's reputation. After careful consideration, the company has decided to terminate his employment, effective immediately. The statement also hinted that they would cooperate with authorities to investigate his financial issues during his employment. This meant that not only had Kevin lost his job, but he might also face an investigation for embezzlement. The bad news was that Kevin had lost his mind. He called me, Mr. Coleman said, his tone grave. He said if I don't sign the divorce agreement on his terms within 3 days and remove all the posts online, he will take a gas can to my parents' house and they'll all die together. The hospital room was instantly silent. Nurse Jessica gasped, "He's insane." "This is a direct death threat. Call the police. We have to call the police." I was silent. Kevin's madness was within my expectations, but it had also exceeded them. I thought he might make threats, but I never expected something so extreme. "Miss Vance, I suggest we report this to the police immediately and apply for a restraining order to protect your parents, Mr. Coleman said seriously. "This is no joke. He's lost his job, his reputation is in tatters, and he might face legal charges. He's completely lost his mind. A person like that is capable of anything." "Of course we have to call the police," I said slowly. "But what happens after we report it? Can the police protect my parents 24/7? Can they detain him before he actually commits a crime? With this kind of verbal threat, unless there's a concrete action, it's difficult for the police to take coercive measures. At most, they'll give him a warning." Mr. Coleman fell silent. He knew I was right. "So what do we do?" Nurse Jessica was frantic. "We can't just let him." "He won't dare," I interrupted, my voice surprisingly calm. "Kevin is extremely selfish. He values his own life above all else. A murder-suicide? He wouldn't have the guts. This is just a desperate attempt to terrorize me into submission. But what if? There is no what if." I looked at them. "Mr. Coleman, please transcribe the recording of his threat and package it with the previous evidence of abuse, the video of the hospital scene, and the documents about his financial issues. Nurse Jessica, please help me contact Dr. Hayes. I want to be discharged early." "Discharged? You can't even move your leg!" Nurse Jessica exclaimed. "I'll use a wheelchair," I said. "I have to show myself. Hiding in the hospital will make him think I'm scared, which will only make him more reckless. I need to show him that I'm not afraid of him, that I have nothing left to lose. A person with nothing to fear is the most frightening person of all. Mr. Coleman looked at me intently. "Miss Vance, what are you planning to do?" "I'm going to hold a small press conference," I said, "right here in a hospital conference room. We don't need many people, just 2 or 3 influential local media outlets. I won't cry, I won't play the victim. I will just calmly state the facts and present the evidence, including Kevin Miller's latest death threat. Then, I will call the police on the spot." Both Nurse Jessica and Mr. Coleman were stunned. "You want to blow this up completely, Mr. Coleman asked. "It's not me who wants to blow it up. He's forcing me to," I corrected him. "He's trying to use his madness to hide his fear. Well, I'll show him what real madness looks like. When he realizes that his threats are useless and will only backfire on him, that's when he'll truly be scared. But your safety? A hospital is a public place. There's security. There's media. He wouldn't dare to do anything." I paused. "Besides, I need to completely turn the tide of public opinion. When everyone knows that Kevin Miller not only abuses but also threatens to kill, he will become a social pariah. He'll be too busy hiding to have the energy to hurt anyone else." The press conference was scheduled for Tuesday afternoon. During this time, Kevin sent several more frantic, threatening messages. One night, he called, drunk, screaming into the phone that he knew which hospital I was in and that he would make my death a painful one. I recorded every message, every call, and gave them to Mr. Coleman. My parents had safely arrived at my uncle's house. After learning about the situation, my father's old army buddy had arranged for 2 plainclothes officers to keep an eye on the area around my uncle's home. My mother cried several times on the phone, but ultimately chose to trust and support me. "Eleanor, all I want is for you to be safe," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Nothing else matters." "No, it matters a lot," I said. "Safety is important, but so is dignity. If I back down this time, I will live in the shadow and terror of the Miller family for the rest of my life. And you and Dad will never have a peaceful day." On the morning of the press conference, Dr. Hayes personally came to check on my leg. "It's healing well, but you absolutely cannot put any weight on it. Be careful even in the wheelchair to avoid a second injury," he frowned. "Miss Vance, are you sure you want to do this? Public opinion is very much in your favor right now. There's no need to personally appear and escalate the conflict." "Dr. Hayes, how much more can the conflict be escalated?" I asked calmly. "He's already threatened a murder-suicide. If I don't show myself, he'll think I'm scared and become even more brazen. Only by showing him that his threats have no effect on me, that they will only make him look like a fool in front of everyone, will he stop." "Doctor," Hayes sighed, no longer trying to persuade me. He just asked the nurse to prepare painkillers and sedatives for me, just in case. At 2 p.m., in a small conference room at the hospital, reporters from 3 local media outlets and 2 enthusiastic netizens were present. They were the rational voices who had supported me online and had proactively contacted Mr. Coleman, wanting to witness the event firsthand. I sat in a wheelchair, my left leg in a thick cast, pushed into the room by Nurse Jessica. I wore no makeup, just a loose-fitting hospital gown. My face was pale from blood loss and pain, but my back was straight, and my calm gaze swept over everyone present. I didn't cry, I didn't complain, I didn't angrily condemn anyone. I just used the calmest voice possible to recount the facts. 3 years of marriage, the extreme control of my in-laws, my husband's shift from indifference to condoning the abuse, the long-term emotional abuse and financial control, the process of having my leg broken, the night I was abandoned and ignored, and the subsequent threats, harassment, slander, and the most recent death threat. For each point, Mr. Coleman presented the corresponding evidence: X-rays, medical evaluation reports, audio recordings, screenshots of text messages, hospital surveillance footage, the video of Brenda causing a scene at the hospital, a copy of Kevin Miller's termination letter, and even the article that had attempted to whitewash the situation. Finally, I played the most recent recording of Kevin Miller's phone call. His drunken, slurred voice, filled with vicious curses and death threats, echoed through the quiet conference room. "Eleanor Vance, you ruined me. You'll pay for it. I know where your parents are. If I can't find you, Do you think I can't find them? At worst, we'll all die together." The recording ended. The room was dead silent. The reporters were scribbling furiously in their notebooks. The two netizen representatives had faces full of anger. "This is everything I have experienced in the past 2 weeks," I began, my voice a bit hoarse but very clear. "I organized this press conference today not to gain sympathy nor to incite public opinion. I just want to tell Mr. Kevin Miller and everyone who thinks like him, domestic violence is not a family matter, it is a crime. Threats and intimidation will not silence the victim. They will only make the hammer of justice fall faster and harder." I paused, my eyes meeting those of a female reporter. "Reporter, I remember you once reported on the domestic violence statistics in our city. On average, for every 10 domestic violence reports to the police, only 1 eventually enters the judicial process. Why is that?" The reporter was taken aback, then immediately replied, "It's difficult to gather evidence. Victims often choose to endure or withdraw their complaints due to fear, economic dependence, or a desire to keep the family intact." "Exactly," I nodded, "because the abuser is often reckless, while the victim has too many concerns. But today, I want to use my experience to tell everyone, don't be afraid, save the evidence. If reporting to the police once doesn't work, do it twice. If one agency doesn't handle it, find another. There is always a place in this society where you can find justice. There are always laws to protect you." With that, I turned to Mr. Coleman and nodded. Mr. Coleman took a step forward, holding his phone up for the cameras. "Now, on behalf of my client, Miss Eleanor Vance, I will officially call 911 to report Kevin Miller and his mother, Brenda Miller, for aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and making terroristic threats, and to submit all related evidence." He pressed the call button and put it on speaker. "Beep, beep, beep. Hello, 911, what is your emergency?" A clear female voice came from the speaker. All the cameras in the room were focused on that phone. "Hello, I would like to report a crime." Mr. Coleman's voice was steady and clear. He gave my name, my ID number, the location of the incidents, a summary of what happened, and the names and ID numbers of Kevin and Brenda Miller. The entire process took about 5 minutes. The dispatcher took down all the information in detail and said they would immediately send officers to the Millers' home and the hospital to investigate. The call ended. The room was quiet for a few seconds, then applause broke out. First from the female reporter, then from the others. The applause wasn't thunderous, but it was long and sustained. I didn't smile, nor did I cry. I just felt that the heavy stone that had been pressing on my heart for 3 years had finally been lifted, just a crack. That evening, the contents of the press conference appeared on local news sites and social media in the form of articles, photos, and video clips. The headlines were more direct than the last. "Wife with broken leg publicly reports domestic abuse, calls police on the spot." "Recording of death, threat leaked. Abusive husband frantically screams we'll all die together." "She is no longer silent, the ultimate counterattack of a domestic abuse victim." Public opinion was completely ignited. The names of Kevin and Brenda Miller, along with their photos taken from wedding pictures and Kevin's company's public events, were shared countless times. The comments were a flood of curses. David Miller's connections were now completely useless. Some people even began to dig into his past to see if he had any issues before he retired. And while all this was happening, what were the Millers doing? According to the limited information Mr. Coleman could get from the police, as the case was under investigation, not much could be revealed. After receiving the report, the police had gone to the Millers' home and the hospital within an hour. At the Millers, Brenda had initially tried to cause a scene, but was sternly warned by the police before she reluctantly agreed to be questioned. Kevin was not at home, his phone turned off. David kept repeating that it was a family matter, a misunderstanding, that his daughter-in-law had mental problems. At the hospital, the police took a detailed statement from me, collected copies of all the evidence I provided, and left their contact information, telling me to be careful and call immediately if anything happened. After the police left, I leaned back in my wheelchair, feeling a sense of exhaustion. Not fear, but the release of a string that had been pulled too tight for too long. Nurse Jessica poured me a glass of warm water and whispered, Kevin Miller's father came just now. The security guard stopped him downstairs. He said he wanted to see you one last time, to talk privately. I'm not seeing him. I shook my head. Tell security that no one from the Miller family is allowed near my room. If they try to force their way in, call the police immediately. Understood. David waited downstairs for a long time, only leaving after it was completely dark. I didn't know what he wanted to say, nor did I want to know. It would have been the same old threats and inducements, the same mix of carrot and stick. But we were past the point of talking. At 9 p.m., my phone rang. It was a completely unknown local number. I answered without saying a word. There was a long silence on the other end, only heavy breathing. Then, Kevin's voice, hoarse and dry, as if forced from his throat. "Eleanor Vance, you won!" I didn't reply. "I've lost my job. My friends and relatives are all laughing at me." My father's old boss called and yelled at him. "My mother's blood pressure is so high she can't get out of bed. Are you satisfied now?" His voice was filled with a numb despair. "What do you want? My life?" "I already told you what I wanted." I finally spoke, my voice calm and unwavering. "An apology, compensation, and for you to never bother me again. You were the ones who refused to give me a single one of those things, instead choosing to escalate the situation with threats and terror. You chose this path yourselves. An apology, compensation," he repeated, then suddenly laughed. It was a sound more painful than crying. "And then what? I become a domestic abuser for the rest of my life. My life is ruined, and you're the victim. You're innocent. You take my money and start a new life. Eleanor Vance, you're a brilliant schemer." "A schemer?" I laughed too, my laugh full of irony. "Kevin Miller, if I were really a schemer, I wouldn't have married you 3 years ago. If I were really a schemer, I would have left the first time I was yelled at. If I were really a schemer, the night my leg was broken, I would have called the police instead of crawling outside for help. Was my brilliant scheme to have my leg broken by your mother and lie on the floor waiting to die?" He was speechless. I'll say it one last time. I reined in all my emotions, my voice turning to steel. "A public, written apology, compensation according to legal standards, and you disappear forever from my life and my family's life. Do that, and we get a divorce. I won't press charges. If you don't, then we'll see each other in court. And by the way, your mother can taste what it's like to be in prison. You know, aggravated assault resulting in minor disability can lead to a prison sentence. Your mother is getting old. I don't know if she can handle it." "You dare! What wouldn't I dare?" I shot back. "I've already died once. What's left to be afraid of? Kevin Miller, the choice is yours. Do you want your dignity, or do you want your freedom? Do you want that little bit of money, or do you want your mother to stay out of prison? You decide." With that, I hung up and blocked the new number. Then I deleted the call history. There was no need to record anymore. What needed to be said had been said. The final chance had been given. All that was left was to wait for the outcome. I knew Kevin wouldn't give up easily. A person like him, even at the edge of a cliff, would desperately grasp at the last straw, even if that straw was an illusion. But I wasn't in a hurry. The police had filed a case. Public opinion was boiling. His social death had begun. And I was in a hospital bed, with doctors and nurses caring for me, a lawyer protecting me, public opinion supporting me, and my parents behind me. Time was on my side. Late at night, I had Nurse Jessica adjust my bed so I could sit up and look out the window. The city lights were the same. The city I had come to for love, the city that had given me 3 years of nightmares. At this moment, it no longer looked so cold and strange. At least the hospital here had saved my life. At least the nurses here had shown me kindness. At least the police here had taken my case. The media here had given me a voice. And there was Mrs. Peterson and the strangers I had never met who supported me online. The world wasn't as dark as the Miller's house. There were always rays of light that would shine in when you were at your most desperate. My phone screen lit up. It was a text from my mother. "Eleanor, are you still awake? I made some soup for you. I had someone bring it over. It will be there tomorrow morning. Don't think about anything. Just rest and recover. Mom is always here." I stared at the message for a long, long time. Then I turned off the light, and in the darkness, I let the tears fall silently. These were not tears of grievance, not tears of pain. They were tears of finally being able to breathe freely, of finally seeing the light, of finally no longer being afraid. I knew this battle was far from over. The Miller family's final counterattack might be even more insane than I imagined, but I was no longer afraid. The broken bone will heal. It might leave a scar, but it will be stronger. The broken heart will also slowly mend. It will carry scars, but it will be wiser. And those who have committed violence will eventually pay the price for their crimes. The day after the police filed the case, the Millers finally made a substantial move. Not an apology, not compensation, but a lawsuit. They were suing me for defamation and invasion of privacy, demanding a public apology, the removal of all online content, and $50,000 in emotional damages. The plaintiff was Kevin Miller. The lawsuit was delivered by David Miller, sent directly to the hospital through the court. Attached to the lawsuit were a few blurry photos, pictures of me with a male college classmate from 3 years ago, deliberately cropped to look intimate, along with a medical record from when I had sought treatment for depression in college. God knows where they got these things. Miss Vance, this is their tactic. Mr. Coleman held the lawsuit, his expression serious but not surprised. They want to muddy the waters, to use a defamation lawsuit to counter your domestic abuse allegations. They're using your past medical history and these so-called relationships to discredit you, to paint you as a malicious, mentally unstable woman with a promiscuous past who is framing her husband. This is a common counterattack from cornered abusers. I looked at the lawsuit, every word reeking of shamelessness and desperation. How dare they? Nurse Jessica was shaking with anger. They're clearly the ones who did something monstrous, and they have the nerve to sue you and demand money? Because they have no other choice? I was surprisingly calm. The police report, public opinion, their jobs, their connections, all the cards they could play were gone. A lawsuit was the last resort they could think of. It could buy them time, disgust me, and maybe even scare off some of the less resolute onlookers. So what do we do? Will this lawsuit be bad for you? Nurse Jessica asked worriedly. It won't, Mr. Coleman answered for me, his voice firm. The elements of defamation are fabricating facts and spreading them. Everything, miss. Vance said is true and supported by evidence. As for these photos and medical records, he picked up the blurry photos and the copy of the medical record, sneering. First, this is an invasion of privacy. The evidence was obtained illegally. Second, it's irrelevant to this case. It doesn't prove that the domestic abuse didn't happen. Finally, depression is an illness, not a stain on one's character. Using this to attack a victim will only make the judge more disgusted with them. But they've filed the lawsuit. The court will accept it, there will be a hearing, and we'll have to go through the process. I looked at Mr. Coleman. This will take a long time, won't it? Mr. Coleman nodded. The first trial, the appeal, it could take half a year at the fastest, or 1 or 2 years. That's what they want. To drag it out, to wear down your time, energy, and money, to force you to compromise. Then let them drag it out, I said, my finger tapping lightly on the lawsuit. Mr. Coleman, we're countersuing. We're suing Kevin Miller and Brenda Miller for aggravated assault. We're suing them for false imprisonment. We're suing them for making terroristic threats. We'll combine their lawsuit against me with our lawsuit against them and handle it all together. They want to play the legal game? I'm in. A countersuit will take time to prepare. Also, Mr. Coleman hesitated for a moment. Your injury evaluation is enough to constitute a minor disability, but going through the full criminal procedure will take time. Most importantly, I'm concerned about your mental and physical state. I can handle it. I cut him off. They want to stall? I'll stall with them. Let's see who breaks first. I knew this was a war of attrition. The Millers had lost their jobs and their reputation, but they still had the house, even though I had paid most of the mortgage, and they had some savings. I had my parents' support and a lawyer's help, but a prolonged lawsuit would be a huge mental and physical toll. But I knew I couldn't back down. If I backed down now, all my previous efforts would be for nothing. The Millers would be emboldened, and I would forever live in the shadow of being a slanderer. Also, I added, publicize their lawsuit, including the photos and the medical record. Since they have no shame, let everyone see just how shameless they can be. Publicize it? Mr. Coleman was a little surprised. This could affect the trial. They dared to use it as evidence. Why should I be afraid to publicize it? I laughed coldly. I want to show everyone what kind of despicable tactics an abusive family will resort to when they've run out of options. Public opinion is a double-edged sword. If they want to use it to pressure me, they should be prepared for the backlash. Mr. Coleman nodded. I understand, but we need to be careful about how we publicize it and what we say, so they can't use it against us. Leave that to me. The night the lawsuit was publicized, Kevin sent me a long text message from a new number. There were no threats, no screaming, just an almost pleading desperation. Eleanor, please stop. I'm begging you. Mom is in the hospital. Her high blood pressure caused a stroke. She's paralyzed on one side now. Dad's hair turned white overnight. He gets pointed at everywhere he goes. I lost my job. All my friends are gone. People recognize me on the street and spit at me. Our family is finished. Do you really have to wipe us out completely? Those photos and the medical record, my dad pulled some strings to get them. It wasn't my idea. I know I was wrong. My whole family was wrong. We're sorry. We'll apologize publicly. You can have the house. You can have the money. Just please, drop the lawsuit. Can you make the online posts disappear? Can you just end all of this? I can't take it anymore. I really can't. Every day I wake up to endless curses. My life is ruined. Do you really want me to die? For the sake of the 3 years we were married, please give my family, a way out. I'm begging you. I stared at the message for a long time. Brenda had a stroke, was paralyzed. The news was a bit surprising, but on second thought, it was to be expected. A domineering, controlling person like her, suddenly going from a queen to a street rat everyone wanted to beat, from an abuser to a potential convict. The huge psychological gap and the fear were enough to crush an elderly person's health. David's hair turned white overnight. The man who was always silent, always a bystander, was finally paying the price for his years of condoning the abuse. Kevin, abandoned by his friends, socially dead. All of this sounded tragic, pitiful. If it had been the old me, I might have softened. I might have thought, am I being too cruel? Should I give them a chance? But not now. I opened the reply box and typed, one word at a time. Kevin Miller, now you know how to beg for mercy. Do you know what it felt like when I was lying on the kitchen floor with a broken leg, begging you to take me to the hospital? Do you know what my life has been like for the past 3 years? Your mother's stroke is her karma. Your father's white hair is his. As for the 3 years we were married, from the moment he stood by and watched me writhe in pain on the floor and said this was my punishment for being disobedient, we had no relationship left. From the moment you implicitly allowed your mother to strike, wanting a way out? Fine. A public, written. I hadn't even sent the message when there was a soft knock on my door. A middle-aged woman walked in. She looked familiar. It was Kevin's aunt, Linda Miller. The aunt who rarely interacted with them, supposedly because of a falling out with Brenda years ago. Eleanor, she called my name, her expression complex. I came to see you. I looked at her warily. Are you here to be their spokesperson? Linda shook her head, putting down a fruit basket. I came to apologize. Apologize? Yes. I knew things weren't right with my brother's family for a long time, but I was afraid of trouble, so I didn't get involved. I've wronged you. With that, she bowed deeply to me. Linda straightened up, her eyes still red. Even though I didn't see them often, we're still family. There were things I knew about a long time ago, but I pretended to be deaf and dumb. That miscarriage you had, did Brenda intentionally delay taking you to the hospital? My heart tightened. How did you know? Brenda, she secretly bragged to me about it. Linda's face showed a mix of disgust and pain. She said she didn't know if the baby in your womb was even a Miller, so it was for the best that you lost it. I told her she was crazy, but she was my sister-in-law. I didn't dare to say more. Later, when I saw you were okay, so it was true. The suspicion I had never wanted to delve into, the doubt my parents wanted to pursue but I stopped them from, was actually true. And your debit card, has Brenda had it all this time? Every time you went back to your parents' house, did she check your luggage? Afraid you would take things with you? When your parents came to visit, did she always have a sour face and say nasty things? Linda listed one thing after another, and with each one, my face grew paler. You knew all of this. I knew it all. Linda closed her eyes in pain. I tried to reason with them. I argued with them. It was useless. My brother is afraid of his wife, and Kevin sides with his mother. I'm just an aunt who's married out of the family. What could I do? I could only stay away. Out of sight, out of mind. But I never thought they could be so evil. To hit you like this. She covered her face and sobbed. This time, I didn't comfort her. Knowing and staying silent is a form of condoning. Her remorse was real, but my forgiveness was not something I should give at this moment. After she had cried for a while and calmed down a bit, I finally spoke. Aunt Linda, you didn't just come here today to apologize, did you? Linda looked up, tears still on her face, but her eyes had become firm. That's right. I came to tell you something that might help you. What is it? Brenda's stroke is fake. Linda lowered her voice. I went to the hospital to see her yesterday. Her right side was supposedly paralyzed, but her eyes and her complexion didn't look like someone who had had a real stroke. I tried saying a few harsh words, and her eyelids twitched. Her fingers moved a little too. She's faking it. To get sympathy. To get you to drop the lawsuit. I was stunned. Faking an illness. That was something Brenda was capable of. How can you be so sure? My mother-in-law had a stroke a few years ago. I know what a real stroke victim looks like. Brenda, at most, had a temporary limb dysfunction due to emotional distress. It's not a stroke at all, Linda said with certainty. And I overheard my brother talking to the doctor, asking the doctor to write a more serious diagnosis, preferably something life-threatening. The doctor refused, but he prescribed some nerve-calming medication. So that's what it was. Using a serious illness as moral blackmail to escape legal punishment. And another thing, Linda continued. Their lawsuit against you isn't meant to be won. It's to drag you down, to wear you out. Kevin, his father told my brother to transfer all their savings and the money left in the account you used to pay the mortgage to another account. It's about $50,000. They're probably trying to hide their assets so that even if you win the lawsuit, you won't get any money. My heart sank. So this was their desperate move. Thank you for telling me all this, I said sincerely. This information is crucial. Don't thank me. I don't deserve it. Linda shook her head and took an old phone out of her bag. Take this. It was Kevin's old phone. My nephew got a hold of it and was playing with it. Somehow, he managed to restore some of the data inside. There are chat histories, photos, and some audio recordings. I haven't looked at them closely, but they might be useful to you. She put the phone down and gave me another long look. Eleanor, the Millers have wronged you. Make them pay what they owe. Make them face the consequences. Don't be soft. I'm leaving now. We probably won't see each other again. With that, she turned and left, her steps a little unsteady, her back looking old and desolate. I picked up the old phone. The screen was cracked, but it still turned on. What would be inside? Kevin's chat history with his parents? Evidence of them planning to control and deal with me? Or something else? I didn't open it right away. Instead, I handed it to Mr. Coleman, who had just walked in. It might need a technician to recover the data. What's inside could be very important. Mr. Coleman took the phone, his expression serious. I'll have someone look at it. Also, I will verify what Linda told you. If it's true, then they're not just suspected of domestic abuse, but also fraud and hiding assets. This lawsuit is going to be a long one. Then let's fight it. I looked out the window. It was dark, and the city lights were on. We'll fight until they're bankrupt. We'll fight until their reputations are in tatters. We'll fight until they can never get back up again. The old phone Linda left was like a Pandora's box, lying quietly in Mr. Coleman's evidence bag. I found a trustworthy tech friend, Mr. Coleman said. A preliminary check shows the phone is password protected, but we can bypass it with technical means. Recovering deleted data will take about 2 or 3 days. Also, through a private connection, I obtained a copy of Brenda Miller's detailed medical records. He took a few pages from his briefcase. The hospital's diagnosis is transient ischemic attack due to hypertension, with mild right-sided limb dysfunction. In layman's terms, it's a minor stroke, far from the paralysis and life-threatening condition she claims. Furthermore, the attending physician noted in the medical record, the patient's family repeatedly requested a more severe diagnosis, which was refused. So, she was indeed faking it, or at least exaggerating her condition. As for the hidden assets, Mr. Coleman pushed up his glasses. I have filed an application for pre-litigation asset preservation, but the known bank accounts in the Miller's name have a combined balance of less than $5,000. The account you used to pay the mortgage had 5 cash withdrawals, totaling $48,000 on the 3rd day after the incident. The person who withdrew the money was David Miller. The surveillance camera footage is very clear. Can we get it back? If it is ultimately determined that this was a malicious transfer of marital assets in the divorce settlement, you can request that he receive a smaller share or no share at all. But if they have already spent the money or hidden it, it will be very difficult to recover, Mr. Coleman said truthfully. However, with the withdrawal records and surveillance footage, we can at least prove they were hiding assets. This will be very beneficial for the judge's determination of their degree of fault. I nodded. The money was important, but now I was more concerned about what was on that old phone. 3 days later, Mr. Coleman returned to my room with a USB drive and a stack of printed documents. His expression was complex, a mixture of anger, disgust, and a hint of relief. We recovered most of the data. He plugged the USB drive into his laptop and opened several files. The chat history was mostly between Kevin and some of his drinking buddies. The photos were mostly unremarkable, but there were some you've never seen before. He opened an album named 2019. Inside were wedding photos of me and Kevin, looking sweet and well-matched. But as I scrolled through, the mood of the photos gradually changed. There was a picture of my tired back as I cooked, a side profile of me falling asleep while working late, my pale face after being discharged from the hospital after the miscarriage. These photos were all taken furtively, like snapshots. He was secretly taking pictures of me. Not just that, Mr. Coleman opened another hidden file. The password had been cracked. Inside were even more shocking photos. A bruise on my arm, a scrape on my knee, and one of a pool of blood on a hospital bed from my first miscarriage. The date of the photo was when I was unconscious. Why did he take these? Look at the chat history. Mr. Coleman opened a chat log file and searched for the keyword photo. A conversation between Kevin and someone named Mark appeared. Mark, bro, are you sure your wife's bruises weren't from your mom? Kevin, nah, she fell on her own. But it's good to have these pictures. If she misbehaves in the future, I can use them to scare her. Say she has self-harming tendencies, that she's mentally unstable. Mark, damn, that's smart. You can't spoil women. You have to make them afraid of you. Once they're scared, they'll listen. Mark, so you took pictures of the miscarriage too? That's cold, man. It's always good to have something up your sleeve. If her parents come looking for trouble, I can say her body is weak, she couldn't carry the baby. It's not our fault. Mark, you're a legend, bro. I bow down. The date of the conversation was 3 years ago, less than 6 months after we were married. So, from that early on, he had been scheming, planning his escape routes, treating me like an object to be tamed and controlled, not a person, not a wife. An icy chill shot up from my feet, instantly spreading throughout my body. I gripped the bedsheet, my knuckles turning white. There are also audio recordings. Mr. Coleman's voice pulled me back from the brink. He opened an audio file. It started with the noisy background of a family gathering, then my mother-in-law Brenda's shrill voice. David, did you see that? Just because she said the vegetables were too salty, Kevin started putting food on her plate and coddling her. What kind of a family is this? Soon she'll be walking all over us. You need to talk to your son. David's mumbled voice. Young people in love. It's normal. Normal my ass. Brenda's voice rose. When I married into this family, if your mother told me to stand, I wouldn't dare to sit. Daughters-in-law these days are out of control. Kevin, let me tell you, you can't be too nice to a woman. You have to set the rules. The first time she went back to her parents' house, did she buy them too many things? Don't let her do that next time. Where's her debit card? Have you gotten it yet? Kevin's voice, laced with a cold amusement. What's the hurry, Mom? I have it. She doesn't know. I'll wait a while and find an excuse to take it. If I push too hard now, she might run away. If she dares to marry into our family, she's a Miller, dead or alive. Her parents are far away. What can they do? Brenda snorted. By the way, shouldn't she get a checkup? Take her to the clinic my friend recommended and see if she can have children. If she can't, get her treated. If she can't be treated, then divorce her. Don't let her waste our family's time in having a grandchild. I know, Mom. The recording ended. The date was a month after my first miscarriage. So that was the cold calculation behind the so-called pressure to have a child. In their eyes, my body was just a reproductive tool. If the tool was defective, fix it. If it couldn't be fixed, discard it. There's one more. Mr. Coleman's voice was very low. It's from the night your leg was broken. He opened another audio file. It began with the dull thud of a rolling pin hitting bone and my agonizing scream. Then came Brenda's cursing, David's weak attempts to intervene, and Kevin's "this is your punishment for being disobedient." Then came the sound of my pained moans on the floor, a hellish contrast to the background noise of them eating, watching TV, and laughing. The recording lasted for nearly an hour, until the sound of me crawling to the window faded away. They were still discussing the plot of a TV show. Mr. Coleman turned off the audio. The hospital room was deathly quiet. I was trembling all over, not from fear, but from a bone-deep chill and a profound sense of absurdity. What kind of a den of monsters had I been living in for the past 3 years? The family, the marriage that I had thought was right, was, from the very beginning, a meticulously planned taming and enslavement, and I was foolish enough to think that if I were just good enough, just patient enough, I could earn a little warmth. Miss Vance. Mr. Coleman's voice brought me back to reality. This evidence is extremely powerful. The chat history, the photos, the recordings, especially the last one that captured the entire process of the assault and their cold indifference afterwards. This is no longer just a civil dispute. This is concrete evidence of a criminal offense. Aggravated assault, false imprisonment, defamation, they can all be prosecuted. He paused. Furthermore, this evidence shows that this was not a one-time outburst. It was premeditated, long-term physical and emotional abuse and control. In court, this will be a knockout blow. I took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled, trying to calm myself. Can this evidence send them directly to prison? Aggravated assault resulting in minor disability usually carries a sentence of less than 3 years. But combined with the long-term abuse, the viciousness of the act, their arrogant attitude afterwards, the hiding of assets, and the malicious countersuit, the judge will likely consider a harsher sentence. Brenda was the main perpetrator. Her age and her illness, even if fake, might be taken into consideration. But Kevin, as the husband who condoned and assisted, will find it hard to escape punishment. David's role will depend on the specifics, Mr. Coleman analyzed. More importantly, with this evidence, their defamation lawsuit against you will collapse on its own. The judge will see clearly who is lying, who is maliciously framing whom. Good, I said. Just one word. So, what's next? Make several copies of this evidence. One for the police to supplement the case file, one for you to use in all subsequent legal proceedings, and one more. I looked at Mr. Coleman. Anonymously release it online. Mr. Coleman was stunned. All of it? No, I shook my head. Just the most important parts. The recording from when my leg was broken, the screenshots of Kevin's chat history with his friends, and the recording of them scheming about my salary and forcing me to get a checkup. Just release it with a simple explanation. Then we wait. Wait for what? For their final act of madness, I said. When all their masks are torn off, when their dirtiest secrets are exposed to the light of day, what will they do? Will they completely collapse, or will they make a final, desperate move? Mr. Coleman understood. You want to force them to do something more extreme, then catch them all at once. I'm just presenting the facts to the public, I corrected him. What they do is their own choice. But no matter what, with this evidence, whatever they do will only make them fall harder. That night, the edited audio recordings, screenshots of the chat history, along with a brief timeline and a factual narrative, appeared on several of the largest social media platforms. The title was not sensational, just a simple statement. Audio dialogue of abusive husband and his mother leaked, scheming for wife's salary, disregarding mental health, coldly watching after breaking her leg. This time, it wasn't a small wave, it was a tsunami. The calculated cruelty of Brenda in the recording, Kevin's cold indifference, my terrified screams, and their laughter created a stark contrast that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who heard it. In the chat history, Kevin's "you can't spoil women, you have to make them afraid of you. Once they're scared, they'll listen" became the most damning label. Is this even a human being? This is an animal, I cried, listening to the recording. How desperate must she have been? Scheming for her salary, taking photos of her injuries to frame her for mental instability. Is this whole family full of psychopaths? And they were complaining about his mother having a stroke before? Turns out it was fake. Disgusting. I support calling the police. A harsh sentence is in order. Kevin Miller's social death is too good for him. He should be physically dead. Public opinion was in a complete uproar. This time, no force could suppress or divert it. All of the Millers' previous attempts to slander and countersue became the most ridiculous jokes in the face of this ironclad evidence. My phone was once again flooded with messages of support and concern. Several local women's rights organizations even contacted me, offering any help they could provide, and the Millers went completely silent. No threatening letters, no new lawsuits, no relatives at my door, and no public response. It was as if 3 skinned rats were exposed under the sun, cowering in a dark hole, awaiting their final judgment. But I knew that silence was often the most dangerous, especially for desperate people who had nothing left but resentment. Mr. Coleman increased security, secretly protecting my parents. The hospital also tightened its security. Dr. Hayes even advised me to transfer to a more discreet rehabilitation center. I refused. What will be, I said. Hiding won't solve the problem. Besides, I wanted to see what else they could possibly do. The moment the door creaked open, I was awake. It wasn't the sound that woke me. It was as quiet as a cat, but a kind of instinct, the chilling sensation of being watched by a venomous snake. I didn't move. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing even, as if still sound asleep. My left hand quietly slipped under my pillow, gripping the personal alarm Nurse Jessica had secretly given me. At the same time, my toes subtly moved, pressing the emergency call button connected to the nurse's station at the foot of the bed. It was a device doctor. Hayes had specially modified for me, extremely discreet. The dark figure paused at the door, seemingly adjusting to the darkness, confirming my location. Then he slowly approached, his steps unsteady, reeking of alcohol. It was Kevin. Even without seeing his face clearly, I would never mistake that presence. He stopped by my bed. In the faint light from the window, I could see his bloodshot eyes, his contorted face, and the knife in his hand. "Eleanor," he began, his voice a hoarse whisper, as if rising from hell. "You ruined me. You ruined everything." I kept my eyes closed, my heart pounding like a drum, but my body remained completely relaxed. I was waiting for an opportunity, waiting for a response from the nurse's station, or for him to get a little closer. I've lost my job, lost my friends, lost my money, lost my home. Everyone is cursing me. Even my own father calls me a good-for-nothing, he rambled incoherently, the tip of the knife trembling in the dim light. It's all your fault. It's all because of you, you vicious woman. You jinx. The strong smell of alcohol washed over me. The tip of the knife touched my throat. The cold sensation made me freeze, but I forced myself to hold still, not opening my eyes, not screaming. If I just cut you, it will all be over. His voice was filled with a mad excitement. You won't be able to sue me anymore. All that stuff online will disappear. I'll still be Kevin Miller. I can start over. The knife pressed a little harder, a sharp pain pricking my skin. At that very moment, I snapped my eyes open, and with all my strength, I swung my left hand, the one holding the alarm, smashing it against his temple. At the same time, my right hand grabbed his knife-wielding wrist, and I drove the knee of my casted left leg hard into his lower abdomen. Ah! The piercing shriek of the alarm instantly tore through the early morning silence. The high-decibel noise made Kevin flinch. The pain from his temple and stomach made him cry out, his grip on the knife loosening for a split second. I seized the opportunity, rolling off the other side of the bed and landing hard on the floor. A searing pain shot through my left leg, but I didn't care. I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Help! He's trying to kill me!" The hospital room door burst open. 2 security guards rushed in, followed by a frantic Nurse Jessica and a doctor. The lights flicked on. Kevin was stunned by the bright light and the sudden influx of people. He stood there with the knife, looking bewildered, as if he didn't understand what was happening. "Get him! He has a knife!" Nurse Jessica screamed. The 2 guards reacted quickly. One lunged for the knife, the other twisted his arm behind his back. Kevin struggled, roaring like a caged animal, but he was quickly subdued, his face pressed to the floor. The knife clattered to the side. I sat on the floor, clutching my neck, feeling a warm liquid ooze out. The tip of the knife had broken the skin. It wasn't deep, but it was bleeding. "Miss Vance!" Nurse Jessica rushed over, her face turning white when she saw the blood on my neck. "Doctor, quickly!" The doctor quickly examined my wound, stopping the bleeding and bandaging it. A guard had already called the police and was holding down Kevin, who was still struggling and cursing wildly. "Eleanor Vance, I'll kill you. I want to kill you. I'll haunt you even as a ghost." Kevin, pinned to the floor, screamed himself hoarse, his bloodshot eyes filled with a crazed fury. The police arrived quickly. The lead officer frowned when he saw the scene. After a brief questioning, he handcuffed Kevin, entering a hospital room with a knife, with clear intent to kill. The officer looked at Kevin being led away and shook his head. "The evidence is conclusive. He's not getting away with this." As Kevin was being taken away, he kept turning back to glare at me, the venom in his eyes almost tangible. "Miss Vance, we need you to come to the station to give a detailed statement," the officer told me. "She's in shock, and her neck is injured." Nurse Jessica stood in front of me. "Can't you do it here at the hospital?" "I'll cooperate," I said, my voice hoarse. I knew that this time, Kevin was completely finished. Attempted murder, on top of the previous domestic abuse and threats, meant he was facing a long prison sentence. Halfway through my statement, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Brenda and David had somehow arrived. Brenda was in a wheelchair, pushed by David, her face sallow but her eyes still sharp and spiteful. She was wailing all the way down the hall. "My son! Let my son go! It was that bitch who framed him. She drove him crazy." David, his face tear-streaked, was pleading with the police and the security guards blocking their way. "It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. My son just came to visit his wife. He was emotionally agitated. He didn't mean it." When they saw me, with a bandage on my neck, sitting in a wheelchair giving a statement, Brenda's wails stopped abruptly, replaced by vicious curses. "Eleanor Vance, you jinx! You homewrecker, why don't you just die? Give me back my son!" David, on the other hand, dropped to his knees in front of the police, his face a mess of tears and snot. "Officer, I'm begging you, please be lenient. My son was just being foolish. He didn't mean it. It was this woman. She drove him crazy. Look at all that stuff online. She made it all up." The lead officer looked at them coldly. "The law will determine what was made up and what wasn't. Right now, the evidence is conclusive. Kevin Miller committed assault with a deadly weapon, suspected attempted murder. You are his family. If you continue to disrupt public order and insult the victim, we can arrest you for obstructing justice." Brenda was about to curse again but was held back by David. He looked up at me, his eyes full of pleading. Eleanor, I'm begging you. For the sake of the 3 years you were married, please forgive Kevin. He's still young. He can't go to prison. Whatever you want, we'll give you. The house, the money, we'll give you everything. Please, just drop the charges. Please tell the police it was a misunderstanding, that he was drunk, that he didn't mean it." I looked at him quietly. The man who had once coldly watched me get my leg broken was now kneeling on the floor, sobbing pathetically. A misunderstanding? I finally spoke, my voice hoarse from my neck injury. When he held a knife to my throat, it wasn't a misunderstanding. When he called me a vicious woman, a jinx, and said he had to kill me to start over, it wasn't a misunderstanding. I paused, watching their faces turn pale. That night, my leg was broken. I was lying on the kitchen floor, in so much pain I thought I was going to die, and you were in the living room, eating, watching TV, and laughing. Did you ever think of forgiving me then? Kevin lost his job, he's being cursed by everyone, and you think he's pitiful. What about me? The torment I endured for 3 years, my leg, the night I almost died, the child I lost. Who pitied me? You ask me to forgive him? Then who will forgive me? My voice was soft, but in the quiet hallway, it reached everyone's ears. Brenda opened her mouth, but in the end, said nothing. She slumped in her wheelchair, her eyes empty. David, as if all his strength had been drained, collapsed to the floor, covering his face and letting out a muffled sob. The police escorted them away. By the time I finished my statement, it was dawn. The morning sun shone into the chaotic hospital room. Dr. Hayes personally came to check my wound, confirming it was just a surface cut with no damage to any major blood vessels or nerves, but he said I had suffered a major psychological shock and needed to rest. "You're transferring, doctor," Hayes said, his tone leaving no room for argument, "to the rehabilitation center. It's quieter there, the security is better, it's not safe here anymore." This time, I didn't refuse. The transfer was arranged quickly. I was taken to a private rehabilitation center in a quiet suburb. I had a private room, professional nurses, and strict visitor control. My parents rushed over as soon as they heard the news. When my mother saw the bandage on my neck, she burst into tears. My father gripped my hand tightly, his eyes red, but he couldn't say a word. "Mom, I'm fine," I comforted them. "It's all over. Is it really over? I didn't know. The wounds on my body would heal. The scar on my neck would fade, and my leg would slowly recover. But some things in my heart, once broken, could never be put back together again." A few days later, Mr. Coleman brought the latest update on the case. Kevin Miller had been officially arrested on multiple charges, including suspected attempted murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and making terroristic threats. Brenda was suspected of aggravated assault and defamation. Due to her illness, even if faked, and her age, she was released on bail pending trial. David, as an accomplice and for obstruction of justice, would also face legal charges. As for their defamation lawsuit against me, it had been dismissed by the court due to insufficient evidence and the plaintiff's own criminal charges. Also, Mr. Coleman handed me a file. "Based on the evidence you provided and the large cash withdrawals from Kevin Miller's bank accounts, the court has preliminarily determined that the Miller family engaged in malicious transfer of marital assets. In the subsequent divorce asset division, you will have a significant advantage. The house will most likely be awarded to you, and a portion of the hidden savings will be recovered." And these are interview requests from several media outlets, and a publisher has contacted us about writing a book about your experience. Mr. Coleman took out another stack of documents. "Refuse them all." I shook my head. "I don't want to be a commodity anymore. This is where it ends." Mr. Coleman nodded. "That's for the best. Living a quiet life is better for your recovery." "Thank you, Mr. Coleman," I said sincerely. "Without you, I wouldn't have made it this far." "You were strong enough on your own," Mr. Coleman smiled. "I just did my job." Another month passed. I could slowly walk with crutches. The scar on my neck had faded to a barely visible line. My parents picked me up from the center and took me to the apartment they had rented for me. It wasn't large, but it was filled with sunlight and warmly decorated. Outside the window was a sycamore tree, its leaves slowly turning yellow in the autumn wind. Life seemed to have returned to a state of peace. I no longer paid attention to any news online, got a new phone number, and cut off all contact with the past. Occasionally, Mr. Coleman would call with updates. Kevin's case had been transferred to the prosecutor's office. Brenda and David's cases were also in process. The divorce was finalized. The house was mine, and the Millers had to pay a sum in compensation. Everything was settled. One late autumn evening, I was taking a slow walk with my crutches in the apartment complex. The sunset painted the sky a warm orange. My phone rang. It was an unknown local number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hello." There was a long silence on the other end, only heavy breathing, then an old, hoarse voice, almost unrecognizable. "Eleanor, it's me, David." I didn't hang up, nor did I say anything. Kevin was sentenced to 7 years. His voice trembled. "Brenda is paralyzed. For real this time, not faking. She had another stroke after coming back from the police station that day. This time, her entire side is immobile, and she can't even speak clearly anymore." I remained silent. "The court has enforced the judgment on the house. We have to move out in 2 days. We're going back to our hometown," he choked out. "Eleanor, I'm sorry. The Miller family has wronged you. Are you finished?" I finally spoke, my voice calm and unwavering. The other end was just a muffled sob. "David," I said his name for the first time, "keep your apology. Tell it to your son, to your wife, to your ancestors. I don't need it. I know we don't deserve it. I just wanted to tell you. We got what we deserved." "We truly did," he sobbed. "That's your business," I said. "It has nothing to do with me anymore." I hung up. The sun dipped below the horizon. The last ray of light disappeared, and the sky turned a deep indigo. The streetlights came on one by one, illuminating the path home. I looked up, took a deep breath of the cool air. Winter was coming, but I knew that spring would eventually arrive. The storm that had broken my wings would, in the end, teach me how to fly again,